After a few months of being maybe the most hated man in WWE, John Cena did the last thing anyone expected. On the final SmackDown before SummerSlam, with the whole world watching, Cena grabbed a mic and didn't just change his character, he hit the reset button on the entire WWE landscape. But this shocking turn back to the good side wasn't just about finding redemption. It was a direct message. We're breaking down how John Cena just set the stage for a massive confrontation and the subtle shots he fired that you might have missed. What we saw wasn't just a promo. It was a confession. It was the story of a man admitting he completely lost his way, and in doing so, he may have just reignited one of the most personal rivalries in WWE history. To really get the magnitude of what happened on SmackDown, you have to rewind to Elimination Chamber 2025. For the first time in almost 20 years. John Cena, the ultimate WWE hero, turned his back on the fans. He cheated to win the undisputed WWE Championship from Cody Rhodes and kicked off a reign of terror that left everyone stunned. This wasn't just a simple character change. It was a complete betrayal of everything John Cena ever stood for. The man who built a Hall of Fame career on hustle, loyalty, and respect suddenly had none. He turned into everything he once fought against: arrogant, entitled, and totally dismissive of the fans who had his back for years. This heel run was supposedly built around chasing shock TV, a desperate shot at staying relevant in a world he wasn't dominating anymore. He finally became the villain so many fans had begged to see for years, but when it actually happened, it just felt off. And according to backstage chatter, WWE felt the same way. The general agreement was that the heel turn, even with its shocking start, just wasn't working. Fans who had spent 2 decades cheering for Super Cena just didn't seem to want to boo the guy who was so clearly on his farewell tour. It was an experiment that seemed brilliant on paper but fell flat in reality. The character wasn't connecting, the matches felt weird, and the energy was all wrong. We had backed themselves into a creative corner. They had the biggest star of a generation in his final year, playing a role the audience refused to buy. They needed an exit strategy, and on the go-home show for SummerSlam, they took it in the most dramatic way you could imagine. The stage was set on the final SmackDown before the biggest party of the summer. John Cena, the smug, villainous champion, walked to the ring, probably to cut one last condescending promo before his street fight with Cody Rhodes. But then, something felt different. When Cody came out, what everyone thought would be a heated fight turned into something like a public intervention. In a moment of startling honesty, Cena actually thanked Cody. He thanked him for forcing his hand, for making him face the truth. 'Cause it was, in Cena's own words, the boot in the ass I needed. The Newark, New Jersey crowd was so confused they went silent. Was this just another one of the champ's mind games? A last-minute swerve before the pay-per-view? But as Cena kept talking, it was clear this wasn't about manipulation. It was about regret. He stood in the middle of that ring and just confessed. He admitted he'd been blind, that he'd become foolish, and that he'd flushed his entire legacy down the toilet just to create some buzz. This wasn't a heel trying to get under his opponent's skin. This was a man having a full-blown crisis of conscience in front of millions. The sudden shift was jarring, but as the promo unfolded, the goal became crystal clear. WWE was hitting the emergency reset button. They weren't just ending the heel run, they were erasing it, putting Cena back in his rightful place as the hero heading off into the sunset. Let's get into the key lines that made this promo an instant classic. It all kicked off with him admitting failure. Cena said, "I've always tried to operate with respect and honesty, but realized I threw all that away 5 months ago for shocking TV." That one line is a direct nod to the whole heel storyline. He's not just talking to Cody, he's talking to all of us, admitting the creative direction was a bust. He's breaking the fourth wall without completely shattering it, letting fans know that the guy they followed for years was still in there. Then he dropped the most pointed, most revealing line of the whole night. He talked about how after the initial shock wore off, the people who were supposed to be on my team left me alone. This felt like a clear and undeniable shot at the philosophy of the man who influenced his turn, The Rock, though he didn't name him. Cena made it clear that he was sold a bill of goods, only to be left to pretend to be someone he's not. This is where the promo went from a simple babyface turn to a deep, layered piece of storytelling. He declared, "Mark your calendar, Cody, August 1st, 2025. The day that John Cena came back to the WWE, it was a declaration of his own rebirth. He wasn't just being a good guy for one night. He was taking his identity back. He even got vulnerable, confessing that his desire to leave with the title wasn't about hurting the business, but because he was scared of being forgotten once he was gone. The segment wrapped up with Cody handing him a beer toast to the return of the real John Cena, as the crowd finally roared in approval. Now, let's really dig into the most fascinating part of all this: the veiled shots at The Rock. While Cena never said his name, the subtext was impossible to miss. Cena's whole speech was a rejection of the philosophy The Rock represents in modern WWE. For over a decade, the heart of their real-life and on-screen rivalry has been about one thing: authenticity versus ambition. Cena was the loyal soldier who never left, while The Rock was the Hollywood megastar who came back when it was a good look. When Cena said he got lost chasing false glory, and that his supposed team left him alone, he was reigniting that old argument. He framed his entire heel turn as the result of buying into The Rock's worldview, a world of part-time appearances, blockbuster moments, and putting shock value over substance. It was a subtle, but absolutely brilliant, way to weave their long history into this new story. Cena's confession that he was pretending to be somebody I'm not can easily be read as a direct critique of The Rock, who Cena has accused for years of leaving his WWE roots behind for Hollywood. This wasn't just about his character, it was about his legacy. Cena was publicly picking a side in that debate. He was doubling down on his commitment to being a full-time, dedicated WWE superstar, even in his final days. By rejecting the path of the part-time legend, he was implicitly taking a shot at his greatest rival. It's that kind of storytelling that blurs the line between script and reality, making you wonder just how much of that was the character talking, and how much was the man himself. Cena's sudden change of heart didn't just affect him, it sent shockwaves through the entire main event. First, it completely reframed his SummerSlam street fight with Cody Rhodes into a battle of mutual respect instead of bitter hatred, a true test of who was the better man. But the biggest implication came after the match. Once Cody secured the win and the title, Cena was brutally attacked by a returning Brock Lesnar. This attack was no random event. Backstage reports confirmed that a final feud with Lesnar was something Cena personally requested for his retirement tour. And for that story to have maximum impact, you need a clear hero and a villain. With Lesnar being the perfect monstrous heel, it made all the sense in the world for WWE to scrap Cena's struggling heel persona and put him back in the role of the valiant hero. The heel run was reportedly dropped because it sucked, but also because a Cena versus Lesnar program just works best with Brock as the unstoppable monster. This one promo completely reshuffles the board. We now have a beloved babyface John Cena gearing up for one last war with his most dominant rival, Brock Lesnar. We have Cody Rhodes as the undisputed champion, with a clear path ahead. And then there's the lingering question of The Rock. With Cena so clearly pointing the finger at him for his moral failures, the door is wide open for the Great One to return and answer the accusations, potentially setting up one final epic chapter in their iconic rivalry before Cena hangs up his boots for good. John Cena's promo on SmackDown was a masterclass in telling a story. It was an apology, a confession, and a declaration of war, all at once. In just 10 minutes, he undid months of a failed creative experiment, re-established himself as the hero we've always known, and laid down the tracks for the final epic feuds of his career. He didn't just save his own character, injected a massive dose of drama and unpredictability into WWE's future. This wasn't just a promo. This was John Cena writing the last chapter of his own story, on his own terms. And now, the entire WWE universe is on the edge of its seat, just waiting to see how it all ends. What do you think is next for John Cena? You ready for the feud with Lesnar? Or are you holding out hope for one last dance with The Rock? Let us know down in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more breakdowns of all the biggest moments in WWE.